It was summertime and twilight. We were sitting on the porch of the farmhouse on the summit of the hill, and Aunt Rachel was sitting respectfully below our level on the steps, for she was our servant and colored. She was of mighty frame and stature. She was 60 years old, but her eye was undimmed and her strength unabated. She was a cheerful, hearty soul, and it was no more trouble for her to laugh than it is for a bird to sing. She was under fire now, as usual when the day was done. That is to say, she was being chaffed without mercy and was enjoying it. She would let off peal after peal of laughter and then sit with her face in her hands and shake with the throes of enjoyment which she could no longer get breath enough to express. At such a moment as this, a thought occurred to my father, and he said, "Aunt Rachel, how is it that you've lived 60 years and never had any trouble?" She stopped quaking. She paused, and there was a moment of silence. She turned her face over her shoulder toward my father and said, without even a smile in her voice, "Mr. C, is you in earnest?" It surprised my father a good deal, and it sobered his manner and his speech too. He said, "Why, I thought, that is, I meant, why, you can't have had any trouble. I've never heard you sigh and never seen your eye when there wasn't a laugh in it." She faced fairly around now and was full of earnestness.
Has I had any trouble? Mr. C, I's gonna tell you, then I leave it to you. I was born down amongst the slaves. I knows all about slavery because I've been one of them my own self. Well, sir, my old man, that's my husband, he was loving and kind to me, just as kind as you is to your own wife. And we had children, 7 children. And we loved them children just the same as you loves your children. They was black. But the Lord can't make no children black but what their mother loves them and wouldn't give them up. No, not for anything in this whole world. Well, sir, I was raised in Old Guinea, but my mother, she was raised in Maryland. And my soul, she was terrible when she got started. My Lord, but she make the fur fly. When she get into them tantrums, she always had one word that she said. She straightened herself up and put her fists on her hips and says, "I want you to understand that I wasn't born in the mash to be fooled by trash." I was one of the old blue hens and chickens, I is. Because you see, that's what folks that's born in Maryland call themselves. And they proud of it. Well, that was her word. I don't ever forget it because she said it so much. And because she said it one day when my little Henry tore his wrist awful and most busted his head right up at the top of his forehead. And the Negroes didn't fly around fast enough to tend to him. And when they talked back at her, she up and says, "Look is here," she says, "I want you Negroes to understand that I wasn't born in the mash to be fooled by trash. I's one of the old blue hens chickens, I is." And then she cleared that kitchen and bandaged up the child herself. So I says that word too when I was riled. Well, by and by, my old mistress says she broke. And she got to sell all the Negroes on the place. And when I heard that they're going to sell us off, auction in Richmond, oh, the good gracious, I know what that means. They put chains on us and put us on a stand as high as this porch, 20 foot high. And all the people stood around, crowds and crowds. And they come up there and look at all us round and squeeze our arms and make us get up and walk. And then say, "This one too old," or "This one lame," or "This one don't mount to much." And they sold my old man and took him away. And they began to sell my children and take them away. And I began to cry, and the man said, "Shut up, your damn blubber," and hit me on the mouth with his hand. And when the last one was gone but my little Henry, I grabbed him close to my breast. So I rise up and I says, "You shan't take him away." I says, "I'll kill the man that touches him." I says, but my little Henry whispered and say, "I's gonna run away. And then I works to buy your freedom." Oh, bless the child, he was always so good. But they got him. They got him, the men did. But I took and tear their clothes most off of them and beat them over the head with my chain. And they give it to me too. but I didn't mind that. Well, there was my old man gone, and all my children, all my 7 children, and 6 of them I ain't set eyes on again to this day. And that's 22 years ago last Easter. The man that bought me belonged in Newburgh, and he took me there. By the years rolled on, and the war come. My master, he was a Confederate soldier, a Confederate colonel, and I was his family's cook. So when the Unions took the town, they all ran away and left me all by myself with the other Negroes in that monstrous big house. So the big Union soldiers moved in there, and they asked me would I cook for them. Lord bless you, says I, that's what I's for. They want no small fry officers, mind you. They was big as they is. And the way they made them soldiers mosey around, the general, he told me to boss that kitchen. He says, if anybody come meddling with you, you just make them walk chalk. Don't you be afeard, he says. You amongst friends now. Well, I thinks to myself, if my Henry got a chance to run away, he'd make it up to the north, of course. So one day I comes in that what the big officers was in the parlor and drops a kerchief. So I sat up and told them about my Henry. They was listening to my troubles, just the same as if I was white folks. I says, what I come for is because if he got away and got up north, where you gentlemen comes from, you might have seen him. Maybe you can tell me so I can find him again. He was very little, and he had a scar on his left wrist, was at the top of his forehead. Then they looked mournful, and the general say, how long since you lost him? And I say, 13 years. Then the general say, he wouldn't be little no more. Now he's a man. I never thought about that before. He was only that little fella to me, yet I never thought about him growing up and being big. But I see it then. None of them gentlemen had run across him, so they couldn't do nothing for me. But all that time, though I didn't know it, my Henry was run off to the north, years and years. And he was a barber too, and worked for himself. And by and by, when the war comes, he ups and says, I's done barbering, he says. I's gonna find my old mammy, less than she's dead. So he sold out and went to war. They was recruiting, and hired himself out to the colonel for his service. And then he went all through the battles everywhere, hunting for his old mammy. Yes, indeedy. He'd hired a first one officer and then another, till he ransacked the whole South. But you see, I didn't know nothing about this. How was I going to know about it? Well, one night, we had a big soldier ball. The soldiers there at Newburgh was always having balls and carrying on. They had them in my kitchen heaps of times because it was so big. Mind you, I was down on such doings because my place was with the officers, and it rasped me to have them common soldiers cavorting around my kitchen like that. But I always stood around and kept things straight, I did. And sometimes they'd get my dander up. And then I'd make them clear that kitchen, mind, I tell you. Well, one night, it was a Friday night, there comes a whole platoon from a Negro regiment that was on guard at the house. The house was headquarters, you know. And then I was just a billy. Man, I was just a booming. I swelled around and swelled around. I just was itching for them to do something for me to stop me. And they were waiting, waltzing, and a-dancing. But they was having a time. And I just a-swelling and a-swelling up. Pretty soon along comes such a spruce young Negro, a-smiling down the room with the yellow wench round the waist. And round and round and round they went. Enough to make a body drunk to look at them. And when they got abreast of me, they went to, bouncing around first on one leg and then on the other, and smiling at my big red turban and making fun, and I ups and says, get along with you, rubbish. The young man's face kind of changed all of a sudden for about a second, but then he went to smile again, same as he was before. Well, about this time, in comes Negroes that played music and belonged to the band, and they never could get along without putting on airs. And the very first air they put on that night, I lit into them. They laughed, and that made me worse. The rest of the Negroes got to laughing, And then I so alive, but I was hot. My eye was just ablazing. I just straightened out myself just as I is now, plumb to the ceiling, moments, and I dig my fist into my hips and say, "Look at here," I says. "I want you Negroes to understand I wasn't born in the mash to be fooled by trash. I's one of the blue hands chickens I is," and then I see that young man standing and staring and still, looking kind of up at the ceiling like he forgot something and couldn't remember it no more. Well, I just march on them Negroes, so looking like a general, and they just caved away before me after the door. And as the young man was going out, I hear him say to another Negro, "Jim," he says, "you go along and tell the captain I'll be on hand about 8 o'clock in the morning. There's something on my mind," he says. "I don't sleep no more this night. You go along," he says, "and leave me by my own self." This was about 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, about 7, I was up on hand getting the officers' breakfast. I was stooping down by the stove, just so, same as if your foot was on the stove. And I opened the stove door with my right hand, pushing it back, just as I pushes your foot. And I just get the pan of hot biscuits in my hand, was about to raise up, when I see a black face come round mine, and the eyes are looking up into mine, just as I was looking into close on your face now. And I just stopped, right there, and never budged. Just a gaze and a gaze, and the pan began to tremble, and all of a sudden, I know the pan on dropped the floor, and I grabbed his left hand and shoved back his sleeve, just as I was doing to you. And then I goes for his forehead and pushed his hair back. So, and I said, "Boy," I says, "if you ain't my Henry, what is you doing with this wealth? You're resting that scar on your forehead." Dear Lord God in heaven be praised. I got my own again. Oh no, Mr. C. I ain't had no trouble and no joy.